All right, everybody. How's it going? Welcome. You are live on Shally's Alley. It is January 24th of the year 2025. We're literally a quarter into this century already. For those of you that are keeping track, and I'm half a century into. Well, I'm not even going to get into that. But happy 2025. My very special guest today is none other than Tim Sackett. Say hi, Tim.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
All right. So most of you probably already know Tim. If not, you've probably heard of him. Maybe you've seen him at a conference, at a SHRM conference or anything. One of the most highly controversial speakers in the circuit of all time. Tim and I actually shared a table recently in Toronto, and we had some interesting things to say, talking about the industry and stuff like that with each other. I always thought that as a consultant, Tim and I were in the same space, but ignorance is bliss, right? Once we got to know each other a little bit better, we realized that we're in cooperative spaces, but not occupying the same space. We're in two different segments, and so it's quite possible we might even run into each other out there at some point, and maybe even share clients.
Yeah.
So Tim goes around speaking at all these events about HR and HR technology and TA technology, and also advising companies on mostly what is it that you're advising your primary consulting practices?
It's mostly talent acquisition, execution, technology selection, some of those things. Like they usually find me with like, hey, like we're broken, and they usually think it's their tech that's broken. Sometimes right. Not. You know how it goes. So
got it. And you jump in and do
we dig in and do the diagnostic and figure out what's really going on.
Right.
Yeah.
And are you a solo operator, or are you part of a big group?
So I own a technical staffing company, HRU Tech, and then this is just kind of born out of that. Mm-hmm. And so I have a big group, that we have a dozen recruiters and salespeople and back office and everything. So,
got it. Well, one of the funny topics that we were talking about is the confusion in the market, especially in TA tech, HR tech, about this whole GenAI and agents and generative AI versus artificial intelligence, AGI, and how the things get mixed up.
Yeah.
One of the things that you did at the very beginning when you took the stage was you basically broke it down in a really no nonsense, very simple, easy to absorb way. I'd love for you to kind of give us a quick recap of that. What are the 4 different kinds of AI that are out there for people that are in the market for this technology, not to get blindsided by vendors?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's really, like I said, there's really 4 main things to kind of be aware of and know as a buyer. One is AI that's called machine learning. And, it's basically, it's if then, right? So machine learning AI simply learns what you like it to do or what you like to select, and it just gives you more of that, right? And that was early AI when we heard all the controversy of, oh, my AI is, biased. And it was like, well, you're teaching it to be biased, and it just is giving you more of what you're already asking it for, right?
So people teach it learns fast, and it learns a lot from a lot of data.
And it doesn't really understand language. It's more of a like number data kind of thing. It's like, hey, I understand that Tim likes to hire people from Harvard that worked at Google. So I should try to find more people
from Harvard that work,
right? It's very simple. It's a very simple way to talk about machine learning, right? But again, we've been using that for a better part of a decade or more within HR. I mean, machine learning's been around probably since the 50s, right? So like AI in that level it's always funny when you ask people like, hey, are you using AI right now in HR? And people will say no. Well, we're all using AI.
To some degree, absolutely. Yeah.
We're using AI in our office products, and we have been. And so to actually freak out now that you might buy something that has AI in it is kind of laughable, because you're already using AI.
You already did.
Yeah. The legal teams that freak out and go, we're not going to use AI. And I'm like, you're using AI right now as you're talking to me.
Whoops. So that one type of AI, the old school stuff is the machine learning, deep learning, where it just does a lot of stuff more of the same and faster. But then there's
Yeah.
definitely an evolution with what folks are, associated with
Just generative.
the
Yeah.
generative AI, and that's kind of been used as a marketing term everywhere,
Yeah.
even misnamed. And then there's now everybody thinks everything is an agent. Is that really the case? And what is an agent?
Yeah. So like obviously you've heard like the large language models, the LLMs, the chat GPTs, the Claudes. This is all this kind of generative AI, which becomes much more robust. And this is the same. We're seeing these features crop up in our stuff where they'll go, "Hey, write me a better email response to a candidate," right? And it helps you, and you agree to it, and all of that. And there's a lot of there's going to be a lot of like those kind of features that we see in our technology, and it's going to continue to be robust. And then like now we start to hear like Microsoft came out with Copilots, and LinkedIn came out with hiring assistant, and which is a kind of a copilot, or kind of this AI assistant to help you do your work. And then there's an agent. Now the difference between a copilot AI and an agent AI is a copilot is like these features where it's like, hey, by the way, you have a task that you should be doing, right? You have an interview coming up, and here's the questions you might want to ask this person. And then but it's not doing anything besides suggesting.
It sort of
right?
reminds you, suggests, right? Okay.
Yep. And like even like you could think of it like an HR self-serve like service stuff of somebody asking a question like, hey, what's our vacation policy? And immediately it just comes and gives you this, and then it might send a message to the HR person saying, hey, Tim asked about vacation policy, you might want to check in with them, blah blah blah. An agent actually is let's say putting through a vacation request, right? Where an HR person might have to go into the HCM, it might have to go into the payroll system, and then approve it into an email, right? So you have 3 different systems that you're working in. You could actually program an agent to say, to basically the person could go, hey, I want to take vacation from January 1st to January 7th. And the agent
it goes
would go
in and it does the approval process and sends
and
out.
you would have no idea that it actually did it, right? It would send an email to the boss. Do you approve? Yes, bam. But like the HR person would have no idea. It's automatically the AI is actually doing this based on, again, a set of training and rules and the policies that you have and all that.
But it is taking action.
Taking action. And we've already seen it with smart recruiters. And really, I'll be honest, like the LinkedIn one is really an agent that they set up as a copilot.
Right.
But when you have recruiter licenses that you're paying for, you can't just eliminate all that revenue. So it's kind of like, hey, we're going to have an agent but we're going to have you as the recruiter approve every step. Actually, it's kind of an agent copilot.
It's an agent that asks for confirmation for everything.
Yeah. So they're trying to set it up as a copilot, but in reality, it's not. But the smart recruiters Winston is a full agent. This agent would somehow get an awareness that an opening, maybe the HCM would alert, hey, Shally just put in his 2 weeks notice. Then the agent would reach out to the hiring manager. Hey, do you want to replace Shally? The hiring manager would say yes, and it would do a full intake with the hiring manager. It would go post the job. It would go source. It would screen. It would set up interviews. And the next thing the hiring manager would know is it would have interviews on their calendar.
Set up. Right.
And the recruiter would, again, have no idea any of this stuff was actually taking place.
But they might be able to go in there and get involved. And
could, yeah. At any point, right, you could say, hey, I want my agent to go and do this. And then I'm going to be the one that screens. And then I'm going to be the one then that, and then the agent's going to come back in and set up that, schedule an interview with the manager, and then we'll take it from there.
So putting it in like ChatGPT sort of terms, because a lot of folks use at least the free version of ChatGPT. By the way, I told you when I was at the table that I started paying for it, and I regretted not having paid for it earlier because of all the things that I'm able to do now that I couldn't do before. But in the context of like ChatGPT, the generative AI, the Gen AI that everybody had a major crush on, it's a large language model. So what it does is it sort of finishes your sentence for you or predicts the fill in the blank, right? So you've got a huge model of a bunch of pictures of bees, and you ask it to generate a bee. So it takes all those pictures of bees and makes a generic bee with the description that you get it. Yeah. So it sort of combines what it knows into something that you're asking for, but it's not creating anything new. It's just remixing and recreating and stuff like that. In that context, the agent, by the way, ChatGPT just created they launched their agent yesterday, I think it was.
Yeah.
And you can use it if you have the Teams Pro, but they're going to be releasing it for the individual Pro. So I'll be able to do check into that. That one has its own browser. So in comparison, regular ChatGPT, it's a big pool of data. You ask it a question and it answers it based on that data. The agent has its own browser and it can go somewhere and do something. And if it has permission to, it could log you in, enter things into a drop-down menu or, database and plug stuff in, get the results, format them, put them somewhere else. So you could say, create a PowerPoint, and it'll actually create a PowerPoint versus give you bullet points to put into the PowerPoint, right?
Yeah. There's going to be, I think, like the future of work is much more of us having these live conversation with agentic AI saying, hey, like, again, like think of every little classic, like, hey, a pay raise. What are the process steps to get somebody a pay raise, and then go in between? And as an HR person, you might just go, hey, I need to give Shally, a 4% pay increase, and then boom, it's done. Like, it's just going to go through and do everything, all the approvals, and is there the budget is there for it, and blah blah blah. You're not going to have.
And it learns. You may not have to actually teach it. Click here, click there. It will click and it'll self-correct and stuff like that. So early on, when there was a huge push for generative AI, and people were talking about, recruiters were talking about, like, oh, it's going to replace my job, all that stuff. I kept telling everybody that this was just a stepping stone. I kept saying, what you see now, ChatGPT, this is going to be gone in a year or two.
Yeah,
it'll be replaced by something. This is like the halfway point in the evolution to something else. We're not there to that something else yet. That's what I was saying. We will get there eventually. And the there that I'm talking about didn't have a name back then, but now it does, is this agentic, independent AI that actually does things.
Yeah.
And so that's what I was telling people. So we really are seeing the birth of the actual revolution now.
Yes.
The other one was essentially the beta test.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's agentic.
If you think of like early internet, with Yahoo and Mail and, all of that stuff, like that was, you go like, oh, this is so cool. Well, now the internet is completely transformed, right, into like how we live our life. And this will be the same kind of thing. The other one that people will hear and kind of get confused is AGI with agentic. AGI is theoretical. This is like the concept of a robot thinking on its own and launching nuclear weapons.
Independent thought.
Right. While we can think about that and we can understand that, hey, this potentially, we want to have this, nowhere is there technology even close to AGI. Like I was on a panel with some Stanford AI professors, some of the smartest people in the world around AI, and they're young. They were probably in their 30s, and they're like, in my lifetime, I won't see AGI.
Right.
Like, just because conceptually we can think about it, like they just know the computing power already just to run an agent. Can you, like, a free thinking computer program? They can't even conceptually understand the energy that would take.
And that's the problem. It's not that we can't think of it. It's that it's simply physically not possible. In order to run these GenAI, you need gigantic data centers.
Yeah.
And in order to run these agents, you need, special, they're even coming up with special processors. They're not even using GPUs in some cases. So it's, so the evolution to an actual artificial general intelligence is going to require, massive supercomputers. And some people say, well, quantum computing can get us there. Yeah, it can get us there. It's just not there right now. So we are talking about a long time away. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt.
So going backwards, because, AGI is kind of definitely still there in the future, but not in our lifetime.
Hello, I'm Ruth Thomas, host of Comp and Coffee, where we break down what's next in the world of compensation management. From pay transparency to performance alignment, we explore how businesses are rethinking compensation to drive impact, equity, and growth. So if you're shaping the future of pay at your organization, grab a cup and tune in. Listen on the Work Defined Podcast Network.
Yeah.
There's all these recruiters that are like, oh my God, AI is gonna take over my job. I'm gonna be unemployed. You and I have both said bullshit to that so many times that I think we're just tired of saying that. The truth is, as I see it, that these tools, agents, are just taking away the mind-numbing, tedious, laborious tasks that we don't like to do anyway, but we have to do. and replacing them with a system that's able to do these things that wasn't able to do before. So it should free us up to do more important, more value-added things.
Yeah.
You have a little bit of a different answer on, AI is going to take my job away. Love to hear you reiterate that.
Well, here's the problem we have is we have too many recruiters who actually do love that tactical work, and they're getting paid a lot of money in corporate jobs to basically move people through a process in an ATS or a recruiting module of an HCM.
Mm-hmm.
And they spend most of their day basically on a computer board, clacking away, moving people through process.
There is some value add in that process, but a bulk of it is labor. It's hard. Yeah. It's hard labor. Right.
And anything I can do on a keyboard as a human, I'm going to have an agent do in the near future. I mean, that's just reality. That's what's going to happen. So if, for me to say an AI won't take your job, I can't really say that because it will take your job if you think your job
if all you do is hack at a keyboard.
If you think your job is just tactically, I'm going to post jobs, wait for people to apply and run them through a process, those jobs are gone in the near future. So
right.
The bigger question is,
but you and I don't define that as a recruiter. We define that as
that's the difference. Yeah.
Right.
If you're really recruiting, think about the stuff that you can't do now that you could do. So again, to me, and I had this kind of awakening last year, we did this CEO study. And we simply asked the question to start with a CEO was, do you agree with this statement? We only hire the top talent.
Oh God. Right.
Like 89% of the CEOs said yes. Right. And then the next question was, do you know how talent comes into your company? And it all fell apart. They had no idea. They assume we as recruiters are out hunting for the best talent in the marketplace. When you and I know the reality, 90% plus post a job, wait for somebody to apply. And of those that apply, they hire the best, which could be the worst people in the market, right?
Not everybody can hire the best.
Yeah.
And you're not looking for them. So really what you're saying is you're hiring the best of what's available.
Yes.
In your inbox.
Yeah. Which could be the worst. Could be the worst talent.
Right. You have no idea.
And so if we really thought about talent in a different way and we sat down with our executive team, our executives would go, I want you guys to go actually find who the best are in our market, in our range. I want to validate that they're actually the best. And then I want to court them and bring them in. Now, you and I both know that as kind of old school recruiting and sourcing. But that's the reality of the future of recruiting that I believe. Now,
start with, at the very least, like define what the best is so we can even, maybe the best is Bill Gates and we can't recruit Bill Gates.
Yeah.
But what made Bill Gates the best? And let's find the people that are going to be the next Bill Gates,
So I think we're going to see recruiters hunting. I think we're going to see recruiters. Here's the other thing that we have going on because candidates are using AI to apply to jobs, and the AI is actually building them profiles that's closer to the job. Recruiters are having a harder and harder time to understand. They're getting more replies and they're getting more that are closer to the job. So it's like, okay, I used to have a half a dozen candidates that actually, look good. Now I have 30, 40, 50 that look good. How do I really know who's good? And so now there's more of a validation, which is, hey, I need to sit down with you face to face and really, really dig into your background, have a really broad conversation and a deep conversation. So I know that you're not faking it kind of thing. Right. So I see much more interviewing going on.
Tim,
probably much more interviewing technology,
That is literally the definition. So you just synthesized 28 years of my life because when people ask me what's the difference between a recruiter and a sourcer, what you just said is a recruiter.
Yeah.
That's the recruiter's job, is to have that conversation with the candidate and validate their background, understand. So as a recruiter, and I've been both, right? As a recruiter, one of my favorite examples of this was when I was working at Fiserv and I had a candidate that I had recently spoken with, I shouldn't say. We had a long conversation. We really hit it off. And it was for a different job. But unfortunately, I didn't feel like he was qualified enough for that job. And so while we were in the conversation, and I'm like, well, based on everything you're telling me, so you have great qualifications, but this job isn't that. I think, out of the blue, do you mind if I share with you another job description that you would never have applied for?
Yeah.
And you're going to look at this at first glance and go, that's not me. but please read through and just suspend your disbelief for a minute. So I emailed it to him and I'm like, did you get it? He's like, yeah. And he reads it through and I'm like, what do you think? He goes, I don't understand. This is not what I do at all. And I'm like, well, it is and it isn't. So he was a consultant looking for a consultative role, but part of the things that he had to do in order to be a good consultant in these organizations was build the architecture for a consulting platform. The requirement was an expert in architecture building for consulting platforms. So I was like, this is really ideal for you.
Yeah.
Would you mind if I share your profile with the hiring manager for this? And he's like, sure. I don't think they're going to like it, but sure. So then I call the hiring manager and I do the same thing. And I go, listen, you would never in a million years, if I set this candidate to you for this rec, you'd be like, Shally, you've lost your mind. But I want you to look at this profile and don't just focus on the resume. Focus on this. At the last 3 jobs that he held, he built the architecture for a consulting platform that manages resources, time, helps you select consultants, and all these other things that you want someone to build. He is not a PhD in computer software, but he does know how to write code. However, it doesn't say you have to know how to write code for this job.
Yeah.
You just need to know how to architect, because when I talked to you about the requirements, you told me someone else is going to write the code. We just need someone to set the, So I said, talk to him. And he did. And he hired him. And the guy took the job and started. And within a week, he's coming looking for me. I want to take you out to coffee. And he was like, I would have never found this job if it wasn't for you. In my mind, that is a recruiter.
Yeah. No, and Shall, over the last
not
10
a
years,
sourcer.
the more automation that we've added, we've actually made recruiting less human, right? We've got to the point where we're trying to move so fast that we miss those kind of opportunities. And
That
people
would
will
never
say,
have
well,
happened.
wait a minute.
Yep.
I'm just a recruiter and I recruit for 50 different jobs. How am I ever going to know all these jobs? Well, you're going to have more in-depth conversations with a hiring manager on the intake. You're going to spend more time with these teams. Like, that's going to be the value that you add. You're no longer going to have to spend all this time going out and looking on LinkedIn for a candidate. Like, AI is going to do that better than you
don't have to do the bulk search. Right. And the other thing is, you really don't have 50 jobs. You really have 8 or 9, because those are the ones where you're having the conversation with the hiring manager right now.
Yeah.
If you want to know how many requisitions a recruiter carries, look at their calendar and see how many weekly cadences they have with hiring managers. That's how many recs they're really carrying, because all the other ones are at the end of the process. People were waiting for final review. We're waiting for, those are not, they may be open jobs, but you're not working them.
Yeah,
you're only working the ones where you're actively talking to candidates. Now, a sourcer is a completely different job. The sourcer is supposed to translate what the hiring manager wants with what the candidate does and go out there and identify people who would not normally apply. Their job is to bring these people in so the recruiter can have the conversation. It doesn't work when the sourcer brings in somebody like that guy I was telling you about, and the recruiter looks at the resume and goes, oh, hell no. If the sourcer can tell the recruiter, no, really, listen, you got to talk to this guy because he doesn't have it on his resume, but he really did it, then the sourcer and the recruiter together can do that. And so sourcing, like recruiting, isn't going to be replaced.
No, and I think so often now, and I see this with my own recruiting team, is that they're not having really deep conversations with candidates where they could go into a hiring manager and tell that hiring manager it's just the screen is too surface level. And if you really want to wow a hiring manager, you really want to have a great relationship with the hiring manager, have a deep enough conversation where you can go to the hiring manager and go, look, you need to do me a solid and interview this person, even though I know you don't want to be based on the paper. Right.
Exactly.
And then when that time shows up and that person shows up and they have that conversation, the hiring manager comes back and goes, holy crap, that was amazing. I never would have interviewed that person. That's the win as a recruiter and a sourcer, right? Like that's when you go, now this is how we find talent. So I think that's one piece of this, right? The other side is like, I think we have this for decades prior to the last 2 or 3, as companies, we would build talent. And then we decided somewhere along the line, no, that's education's job to build talent. And we stopped building talent. And I think, again, if we have more capacity, is it our job to get in the community and start to really build talent in the markets that we need it, right? I like if, Google wanted to complain forever, Facebook wanted to complain forever, there's not enough female software engineers. That's a you problem. You guys never invested at the right level in elementary schools and secondary schools to bring girls through STEM to make them want to become a software engineer and show them how great it could be. Instead, you just wanted to yell at Stanford for not bringing enough software engineers. And you're just like, that's not going to work. That's not how this works. So I think there's so many cool things we can do. I'm hopeful, right, for the future of TA, because I think it becomes more human, because AI is going to give us that ability to have really deep conversations, know who the talent is. I always tell people, I love to share this example of, we think we pipeline talent. We don't really pipeline talent. We spam talent. If you would really wanted to pipeline talent, imagine you had a group. Let's say it's a group of salespeople. You had 10 salespeople in this group, and you said, hey, if we lose one of our salespeople, immediately I want to be able to replace that with a great person. And you're like, oh yeah, don't worry. We have 5,000 people in our pipeline. You're just going to spam 5,000 people. Now, what if we actually went through the entire process of finding a great salesperson, interviewing them? They already have a job. We don't have a job, but we actually put them on, quote unquote, the bench, where I'm going to pay them $1,000 a month. They still keep working at their job. They have a commitment to us, so that when we have a job, that we're going to make them an offer at whatever we agreed upon. So and then when that job comes open, until then,
they keep working their job, and we have an agreement, right?
Yeah, and you're going to work for us as a gig worker, 5 hours a month. You're going to show up to some meetings, blah blah blah, see some email, whatever that might be. And then when the offer comes, you're going to put your 2 weeks in, and we have you, and we already know, and we have a contractual relationship.
Sounds good to me.
That's real pipelining. And people go, wait a minute, that costs money. Well, how much does it cost when a salesperson leaves you and you have that job open for 6 months because you weren't ready to fill it, and you have to go through, and then you have false starts and all this other stuff. I just think there's way better ways for us to do this, but capacity wise right now, we couldn't even think about that, because we're caught in fighting fires every day. I had this wreck. I thought it was closed, and then the person didn't show up day one. And now I got to start all over again because my number two also bailed on me. And that's the job of a recruiter now, is to fight fires.
Hands on fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of that work will go away. It's just going to go away.
So totally in agreement with that. And I think there's a secondary step, or a halfway step between here and there. Because that's, like you said, lots of things would have to change.
Yeah.
And it would be ideal if you could put people on retainer, but there's going to be a while before that. So between here and there, what we could do is really build an actual talent community or talent network, which is not a list of people that you only spam. It's actually a list of people that you can keep updated and send, other messages with, and have conversations with. And, that would be a little bit more work than what we're doing now, but a lot less work than we're describing. And it would be a humane way to do it.
Yeah.
But you can't do it right now when your pants are on fire. So
imagine, right? We always imagine if we could do this. A CIO comes to you and says, yeah, we need this talent pipeline of software engineers, whatever. So we start building the pipeline. And then we said, hey, CIO, since this is so important to you, every Friday, we're going to do an AMA at noon, and we're just going to go live only to the people in the community. We might have 5 show up, we might have 25 show up, whatever. But we're going to start to do things like that, right? Where we actually have real content, real conversation, building real community around, we want you to come work here. Again, we don't even think about that now because we just don't have the capacity to pull it off. So there's
AMA
just
would
so
be
many things we could do.
Q&A or an event, some kind of an event.
Yeah.
Yep. I like that.
So I love that stuff.
So something else that really lit you up, and I was like, I saw the fire in your eyes when we were chatting, was this whole concept of ghost job, fake job. But you and I both know there's a hell of a lot of fraud out there.
Yes.
And people are being taken advantage and ripped off and everything. But this whole ghost job, fake job argument, particularly when I'm going to use air quotes for those on the radio, career influencers on TikTok who have maybe had 1 6-month job in their entire life, and all of a sudden now they're a career influencer teaching people how to get a job. So tell me why that lit you up so much, this fake job, ghost job, career influencer thing.
Well, conceptually, it makes zero sense. One is that it's not free to post a job. You and I know that. I mean, even if like I could find a site where I could actually post a job for free, there's still resources being spent. There's time to have to go post it. There's things coming in that you have to deal with. Like, there's no reason that someone's going to spend the money to put out a fake job for no reason, right? Like, so to me, I was like, I'm screaming like these fake jobs aren't real. Ghost jobs aren't real. Now, the problem we have is that so often candidates are applying for jobs and hearing nothing, and then the job closes and they just go, well, that must have been a fake job, or it's a ghost job.
You and I both know what that is. It's not a fake job. Yeah. Now, I just want to differentiate. There are fake jobs that are fraudulent, and people apply and they'll try to, get you to pay for an airplane ticket.
Oh yeah. A computer.
These are fraud. Right?
Yeah.
That's fraud. That's not a fake job. That is a real job posting that's going to rip you off and take your money.
Yeah.
But we're talking
and so like, we can be very clear. No company is ever going to say, hey, you got the job. I'm going to send you a link. Click on it. Put in your credit card for your computer thing. We'll reimburse you. Right. But this will just make it happen faster. That's fraud. No one's going to ask you to do that.
No. Companies don't have you pay them up front.
By the way, I'm completely like, my heart goes out to the people, because the people that got taken advantage of that were the most desperate, and they needed a job. They were so happy to finally get a job. They have to pay their bills, and they were desperate enough to say, oh,
money up front.
I guess this makes sense. And you're like, no company is ever going to ask you to pay money out of your own pocket for that kind of stuff,
Right. Yeah. So back to the ghost job thing. You and I both know why that happens, right? We have, and there's a few reasons. One of them is we're required to post the jobs.
Could be.
And we have to distribute them everywhere. And so it gets broadly broadcast and everybody applies.
Yeah.
And then we're overwhelmed with applicants. Another one is we accidentally, or for whatever reason, kept the job open and posted, even though we already have people in the final stages. And so if we're about to make an offer to somebody and somebody else just applied, it's like, you're kind of like, sorry, my bad. I should have taken that job down. But, so what's your take on this whole thing, and especially the career influencer?
Yeah. One is like, the TikTok career influencer people drive me insane, because when you take a look, the vast majority of them are failed recruiters. Like, and I know the resume, right? It's like 6 months at this company, 12 months at this company, 9 months at this company. And all of a sudden, I'm a TikTok influencer on careers. And you're like, no, you're a failed recruiter that couldn't get another job. But like, regardless, right?
But their advice is
and their advice is usually they treat like recruiters like they're garbage, because they don't even know what a good recruiter is, and they weren't one. And it's all about clickbait, right? So it's like, oh, what can I say that the candidate will go, yeah, I'm getting screwed. And they're like, oh, I got 500,000 likes. And you're like, of course you did, because you had, like, these people are frustrated with a career job search. And so I do think, like, hey, we own the bad communication. We own, their lack of understanding of, oh, by the way, this is a government position. We're forced to force it, even though the hiring manager already has a candidate internally they've decided on. They're going to hire this person, and yet we have to go out for 2 weeks, post this job, and then tell everybody you didn't get the job. Stuff like that. Like, there's just bad stuff that happens that we just, how often a manager, right, tells us, hey, I have this job, post it. And we go through, we screen candidates, we give them candidates, and they're just like, yeah, I'm not ready to hire right now, or I want to see some more. And then just keep it open. And you're just like,
what else is out there?
What else is out there? And they just are feeling the market. And again, it gives this perception that, like, hey, this isn't a real job. Yep. It is a real job. Now,
and in some organizations, the policy is that recruiters are required to disposition candidates within 48 hours, 72 hours. So that means that they're really roughly and rapidly going through this list of people and just sending them to the rejection pile, even if they didn't spend more than a few seconds on the resume, and they get an automated message or no message at all And it's just because we have 20,000 applicants and
Hey,
there's no
it's
time.
real. I was at dinner this week with an HR executive, and he was telling me how their head of TA was new coming into the company, enterprise company, and she had a person she wanted to bring in with her. And so she wanted to play by the rules. So she told this person, hey, go to our career site, apply to the job to this executive recruiter, and I'll tell the recruiter that you're going to apply. But by the time the person applied, the executive didn't have a chance to tell the recruiter, and the recruiter dispositioned them. And it was like,
wait a minute, why did you reject me?
Exactly. Yeah. She was like, and so they had a big laugh about it, but it showed like, here's a person that 100% was going to get hired by the executive. They had an amazing resume, and this recruiter just went and dispositioned them for who knows what reason. Like I wanted to dig there. I kept asking, why did they disposition? And they're like, well, we never really asked. Like it was that uncomfortable conversation of, I didn't think this person, and really what it came down to was like, this person had this role at this company. There's no way they would want to come work here. And you're like, oh my God.
That's a huge assumption.
Yeah, a huge assumption.
It's a huge assumption. Wow.
Okay. Hey, I saw the comment coming in right on the
Oh yeah, one. I was going to ask you about that because this is a pretty good question, and it's cut off. But Jaswal is asking about VMS portals where resumes are submitted in a flood for the first few minutes, and then if you're late, your candidate is going straight to the recycle bin. Do you think VMS portals should change something to address that?
So it's not really a VMS issue. It's a client issue, right? Like the VMS people could easily change it, but the clients they want to be able to show the client, oh, we filled we got you 20 submittals in 15 minutes, which we all know are garbage submittals, right? Like again, this is a conversation I have almost weekly with clients. If I'm a big enterprise and I'm using VMS, I'm going to go to the VMS and say, hey, we're going to post a job. We're probably going to have some kind of a hiring manager intake, either video or call or something to send out to the recruiters. And then we're going to wait 48 to 72 hours before we even open it up. And then we're going to limit the submissions that somebody can actually submit. If you're a recruiter, you can only put in your best 2 people after 72 hours, whatever. And then on top of that, we're going to measure how many of those people that you submit actually get screened or interviewed for the next level. And if you fall in the bottom 10% or whatever, a quarter percent, 25% of those recruiters or companies that aren't getting interviews, which means you're just putting in junk, we're going to knock you out of the system because we don't want that. We want you to take time to put in really great people that want to come work here. And that's where the VMSs are broken. And the VMS should be going to clients and going, hey, we have a better way. It's on the outward, like you're going to think it's going to actually take longer for you to get great talent. What I'm telling you is you're not getting great talent now. If you let us slow the process down a little, I potentially could get you better talent. And let's do it that way. And so few, Shally, actually do that. We have some that'll go, like they do a 24-hour thing, and then they'll go, and then they just limit the number you can put in. But Japal's completely right. Like we work with so many VMSs that the moment the opening comes up, within 10 minutes, it's completely full. And you're like, there's no possible way people had conversations with those candidates to know, they want to see if they wanted to go to those jobs. It's a completely broken system.
Yeah, it's a good question.
It's really good. Yeah.
But it's not something that you can solve by changing the software.
It's not a software. I mean, you can put in roadblocks and stop gaps and stuff like that, but the client has to really understand what's going on. And most of the time when I have that conversation with the head of TA, head of HR about their VMS, they have no clue that's what's happening. If you talk to the hiring managers, they know. They're like, look, I hate our VMS and because it's all garbage. And then but no one's willing to actually go forward and just say, hey, we need to change this because again, they don't understand it either,
Yeah. Yeah. I want to quickly come back to I have one other question I want to ask you, but I want to quickly come back to the whole ghosting candidates and all that. One thing you and I talked about briefly, but didn't really dive into too much detail is the job seeker using AI to apply for hundreds of jobs, and you dropped a hint of a Wall Street Journal article
Yeah.
about that. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? So this is now not a recruiter using AI, but a job seeker using specifically a kind of automation that applies for jobs for them,
Yeah.
somewhat indiscriminately and in high volume.
We started seeing this last year, and it started to come out. The ATSs were like, hey, we kind of have a data blip going on. And the data blip was like their jobs went from, if let's say the average apply to a job was 100, it was doubling. It was going to 200.
It was.
And like that's, I mean, statistically, that's just an outlier, but it was across the board for all jobs. And so as we started to dig in, what they were able to show on the ATS side was like, hey, because we have, tens of thousands of clients in this ATS, and we see these are going up. We have one candidate who applied to 100 jobs, and it took them 3 minutes to do so. Which, that can't happen. So AI,
clearly not human, right?
Yeah, AI is doing this. But then the problem also is that not only are candidates it's not like they're taking one profile and just jamming it to 100 jobs. The AI is simultaneously matching the job and the profile and making changes to the profile. So as a recruiter now, where you might have had 10 or 12 candidates that actually met the description and what you were looking for, now you might have 2x, 3x the number of candidates that look great, but you don't even know if they are great. Or did AI just create this profile that looks like they're great,
right, to match
and
your
so
keywords.
It's a real problem. Like the job of a recruiter has gotten more difficult, not less, because of AI right now today. Now, again, every little piece that's coming out is probably going to help, right? And we're going to start to see some of this stuff. I do think, like you see, Match 2 just came out. This is Doug Berg's new company, which so he's flipping the apply thing on its head. He's basically saying, hey, if you come to our career site and you decide you want to apply to a job, the first thing you have to do is upload your profile. We're not going to show you open jobs. You're going to upload your profile, or we might show you open jobs, but we're not going to allow you to apply.
You're not going to apply for them, right?
You're going to upload your profile, and then the AI is going to say, here's what you actually match for. And do you want to do this and this and this? Also, the AI might go, hey, by the way, you worked at AWS, and we know that if you work there in this job, that you also should have this skill and this skill. Do you have these skills? If so, we want to add it to your profile because there's 2 other jobs that you might match with. And so now, instead of having somebody come in and just randomly apply to 100 jobs you have open, they're not going to be able to. They're only going to be able to apply to the jobs that they actually, have
do qualify
the skills for and all that.
Right.
Which I think is a super interesting way, because it's kind of a middleware. You can use it with any ATS, any recruiting mod. It's pretty lightweight. But it stops this, hey, I'm going to have 1,000 people apply to a job, right? It's not going to happen, because, anyone that doesn't have the background, it won't even see the job, to apply.
Right. It won't even, yeah. They might get some sample jobs to understand how the technology works, but
yeah.
Right.
So I think we're going to see a lot of that kind of stuff come up. Again, you know how it is the candidates will find something and it blows us up, and then we find something on our side that kind of combats it, and vice versa. We'll go back and forth.
Yep. So I have time for one more question, and then I need to do my wrap-up questions. My final question. Hopefully you'll have time to come back on the show some other day.
Yeah,
but
love to.
You write extensively about talent acquisition, the intersection of TA and technology. You go to a lot of conferences and speak at them, and you're actually one of the few speakers like me that has the decency of sticking around and listening to the other speakers. You don't just show up, do your thing, and leave. So you're listening. You have a blog with lots of comments. You're very active. All of this to say, I'm not trying to flatter you and blow smoke up your ass, but I just want to give you credibility as far as like the amount of different perspectives that you see. What is the most common piece of advice that you see in the industry that you completely disagree with? And what would you do instead?
It's a great question. I think it all has to do around metrics. I think time to fill is the most worthless metric ever made to man.
Yes.
So like I say that openly, and I say it on stage, and I tell leaders to their face. There is zero causation between the time it takes to fill a job and the quality of that hire. You can correlate, right? And we do that all the time. But just because you're faster doesn't mean you're better at recruiting in TA. Just because you're slower doesn't mean you're worse. I always say it's a health metric, right? If you know it roughly takes you 30 days to fill an accounting position in your market, and it takes you 90 days in your company, you have a problem. That's probably cancer. But if you're at 37 days or 25 days, you're no worse or better. You're fine. You're in the market,
And eking, saying, "Oh, we reduced our time to fill from 45 to 44 days."
Yeah. And
okay.
And Shall, here's why I know, because I will go in and do these recruiting diagnostics. And part of that is to meet with the senior executive team. The senior executive team will say, Tim, we suck at recruiting and we're failing. And then I'll go and say, well, I pulled data. In the last 5 years, you paid 100% bonuses to your TA team because they met and reduced time to fill every single year. And they're like, yeah, but we're terrible. Well, no. You're saying they're awesome because they got faster.
Because they got faster.
Incrementally faster, right? It went from 37.1 to 36.9.
You're incentivizing the wrong thing.
Incentivizing the wrong thing. Yeah. So to me, that would be the one thing. And again, I would dig it. People go, well, what do you measure?
So why, you may not be able to answer this. I think I probably couldn't even begin to start unraveling the thread. Why is time to fill such a pervasive metric?
Because it's the only clean data that we knew how to pull out of TA for the longest time. We know when a job opens.
You're saying that it's clean, but it's not.
No, but we know when a job opens and we know when a job fills. So to me, that's the cleanest data we can have. There are those 2 timestamps.
I see what you're saying.
So that's since we said that, and then what you have constantly is executives and hiring managers go, I need people faster, and not really understanding the dynamics of how someone gets hired, right? Hey, we're going to come and we're going to talk to you about this job and we're going to post the job and then people are going to apply and then we're going to screen and then we have to go through your calendar to find interviews and then they have to put 2 weeks in. Right away, almost any job is at 30, 36 days, right? Just to fill a simple job that you have good candidates for. And yet somehow a hiring manager thinks that, somebody should show up 3 days later when they have an opening. You're like, that's just not reality. So time to fill became important for really no reason besides it was clean data that we could pull. And we're so nervous about going into a board meeting and then having dirty data and our CFO calls us out and said, no, that's not correct, or whoever, right? Versus going, hey, we know what we're going to do. We're going to actually pull, I need capacity data. I know that it takes 25 top of funnel applies to fill one of our high volume jobs. And we need to fill 100 of those in a month. Thus I need 2,500 top of funnel. And thus I need 30% of those screened, blah, blah, blah. Right. And by the way, we're currently at 93% capacity. You just came to us and said you wanted to just hire another additional 100 a month. That's not going to happen. We're going to fail unless we have A, B, C, D, resources to make this happen or shop some of this out to a third party, whatever that might be. But we're really thinking about TA like in the wrong. And I immediately, when I have somebody come to me and like, yeah, like we lead the country in time to fill, I'm like, you're worthless. I would fire that person immediately. You're worthless.
Yeah, right. So time to fill. Yeah, I like that. Number of hires and how long it takes you to make the hires are both very insular metrics, in my opinion. They are, if anything, a snapshot of a point in time. Yeah. And although they can give you some measure, like a speedometer in a car, it can tell you how fast you're driving. It doesn't necessarily tell you whether you're going to get there on time because you might be going the wrong way or there might be traffic ahead.
Yeah, your car might break down.
Right. There's some of those measures that are like, sure, we know how fast we're going, but that really doesn't even predict when we're going to get there. There's other factors. So if they're trying to figure out, if the question they're trying to answer is how is our TA team doing?
Yeah.
What is a better question to answer that actually demonstrates that they're doing well?
Yeah. I mean, to me, then it comes back to really understanding the jobs that you have open in the impact on revenue that it's making by having those open. Right. in the priority that you have there. So like I go back to like, I don't need new metrics. What I need is to understand what the business is trying to accomplish. And then what is talent or the lack of talent that I have? What's the impact cost of that? So if I know I have a sales position open and every day that sales position open, it costs the company 25,000 in revenue, I should be able to put a ton of resources towards making sure we fill that as well as we can. Right. And stuff like that. So there's a common, every company is a little bit different. So I don't have one magic like metric or number they should be, but to me, I'm always looking at, are the positions that we have open causing an impact to business in a negative way. Right. And if they are, then how do we change those? How do we change that?
Yeah. I don't need new metrics recruiting 2025. Yeah. So I'm not asking for a metric at this point. I'm really looking for a way to be able to go to the C-suite and say, your TA team is doing a good job and I can prove it. And it's not time to fill. And it's not, some people say staffing rate, which is the percentage of jobs that are left open or whatever. Again, number of hires is not going to do it either. Are you saying that this is really ever only going to be a subjective measure? Or are you saying that is there a solid way that I can prove to the C-suite that we're doing better or worse than last year?
Yeah, it's a great question, Shall. I mean, again, like I said, I think every company's that answer is a little different. I still go back to the business metric. Yeah. What's the most important business metric? Is it revenue? Is it margin? Is it quality of
product? What did the C-suite say? Are we acquiring new markets? Are we buying a new company? Are we going to a new product? Are we going to a new country? And then how is TA helping us achieve that goal?
Yeah. And then like if I can prove like, hey, there's something we're doing that's either having a positive or negative impact on any of those measures, that's the conversation I should be having with my C-suite, right? Yep. Hey, we know because I don't have the best, sourcing technology or recruitment marketing technology or whatever, it's taking us longer to fill these revenue generating roles, right? And it's costing us this much money. If I can have that conversation, it's a way better conversation than, hey guys, just know we're doing great. We went down 0.3 days this year. Meaningless.
Yeah. Well, we have a few minutes left. So I want to, first of all, thank you very much for coming on. This is a very exciting show, and we're gonna get lots of airtime out of this. But before you go, there's two questions that I ask everybody, and you probably haven't seen my show yet, so you probably have no idea what's coming. The first of those questions is, who should be our next guest?
Love that. God, I think there's so many people.
I'll take several names. And by the way, they don't have to say yes. I'll invite them, but
well, I mean, I always my go-to is always going to be Chris Dunn. He's currently the CHRO of US Canada for Marriott. But I mean, in December, he was the global head of TA for Marriott. He is probably one of the corporate TA leaders that I could easily say, in my mind, the number one in the world in terms of getting it at a way different level than everybody else. But he has people on his team like Tyler Weeks, right, from a TA data or HR person again, that is awesome and really understands, that. I think there's just, God, there's so many great minds out there. But those are two names for you.
Okay. Chris Dunn at Marriott, I'm going to reach out and see. The second question, or the final question, is because this show is almost always, most of the time, people look at this or listen to this later after the fact. It's not usually a live audience, although we had a big one today. I want to give them something. I want to trigger a thought. I want to give them something to think about deeply. So, can you give us a question to ask ourselves that we need to think about for ourselves? Could be about anything we talked about today or something different.
No, I think it's the question we had today. It's the question I keep asking myself over and over again. It's the question I probably ask myself over and over throughout the year and next year. If tomorrow 75% of my work went away, what could I do? What should I do? Because that's the future of what TA and what HR is going to be. Now, AI is not going to be a light switch. 75% of your stuff's not going to go away tomorrow.
No.
But if we're not,
it does,
yeah,
right?
because if we don't answer that
helps your plan.
question, the CFO is just going to come and say, okay, how many heads can you give me? Right? Because they're not going to do it because we're getting rid of all this work. I need heads. Instead of you go, hey, I understand that they're not doing this work now. Here's the new work and the new value that we're going to add to the table. And I think that's what we have to be answering. And it's not an easy question to answer because, again, every company is going to be a little bit different in terms of, hey, blank slate, wipe out your mind of what you used to do. What could you do? Just brainstorm that, write things down, send yourself messages. There's so many really, really cool things that we could do. And to me, that's what, energizes me right now. Like I just had 3 conversations this week with some technology people that literally I'm like going, holy crap, this could do everything my team does right now. What could we do? What should we do? Of course, it's not going to be like put my head in the sand and hope that the technology goes away. It's not going away.
It's going to evolve and change and everything. But it doesn't. What you're saying doesn't matter whether it's AI or whatever. You're saying if hiring were to stop or whatever. The point is, if 75% of your role is eliminated, how do you evolve? What do you need to do to prepare for that eventuality?
Yeah, and it's not becoming a prompt engineer. Yeah.
Do we even need that anymore?
I don't think so.
Oh man, it's been a blast having you on the show. Really appreciate you being on here. I know you're busy.
No, yeah, Shally, I love talking shop. You know that we saw that. Like again, the reason I go to conferences and stay is because I'm curious.
Yeah,
like you never know
what's going on.
Like I pick up something from everybody, right? Like no matter who's on stage, like someone's going to talk about something or someone's going to ask a really great question. It's like, and it just like, that's what energizes me. Cause I think it's not one person that's going to like determine the future of recruiting and TA. It's going to be all of us. Right. And so it's like hearing all of these opinions and ideas and then putting them together to me is amazing, Yep.
Love it. Love it. Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah. Really thanks for having me.
Yeah. It's a blast. Folks, we have next up on the show, we have Ravi Tandra, the CEO of a revolutionary sourcing / recruiting platform called Proven Base that has introduced a bunch of very interesting filters for information that address a lot of what we were talking about today, as far as like looking for the right match as opposed to just sourcing in volume. The focus is with this tool is to get these micro indicators that tell us that this could be the right person for the job, even if their keywords don't match, right?
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. I encourage you to check in with us. And then Steve Hardy, former colleague of mine from Fiserv, is coming next week. So hopefully you'll tune in. If not, you'll get the recording. Either way, be kind to yourselves. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.